How Emotion-Centered Training Taught a Horse to Stop Peeing in the Stall, written and narrated by Missy Wryn. Benny, a beautiful Palomino paint horse, had been locked in a stall for 2 years that I know of. He was pulled out of his stall by the Humane Society, and by the time he came to me, he had been in 5 different barns, making me his 3rd new owner in 6 months. Benny had string halts so bad that his rear hind legs would literally collapse beneath him as he scrambled to keep himself upright. When he was rescued, his front left hoof had grown out to a curl and had to be hacksawed off. Benny was covered in fecal matter from head to toe that had to shed out due to his flesh being raw, so he could not be groomed. He had been born with contracted flexor tendons, which could have been repaired when he was still a young colt, but it didn't happen, so now his back feet are club with rotated coffin bones and hooves like stumps. He also had herpes lesions on the outside of his mouth his first 2 years with me and continues to limp on his left shoulder in what the veterinarians call a functional deformity due to the overgrown hoof that was hacksawed off. Needless to say, Benny was a real messed up horse both physically and emotionally by the time he came to the Zen barn. At my barn, I have a set of stalls with 100-plus foot paddocks for the horses to freely roam in and outdoors 24/7. In the summer, we have daily pasture turnout, but in the winter, due to our limited acreage and the rainy Pacific Northwest weather, pasture time is limited, so not to turn the pasture into a mud pit. In the paddocks, each horse is side by side with a 6-foot no-climb equine fence and hot wire across the top between them to keep everyone safer. Each stall has a 4-foot gate as the stall door instead of a slider, so the horses can hang their heads over to watch the activity in the arena and see one another too. Our stall flooring has rubber mats on top of gravel. We put down bedding pellets just on the areas the horses urinate since they typically pick a localized area. The pellets break down underfoot and are great at soaking up the urine and reducing the smell, plus it is easy to scoop up the soaked areas and replace with half a bag or so a day for the heavy users. It's a simple setup that keeps our barn smelling sweet and everyone safe and happy. For most horses, they urinate and take care of their business outside their stall if they have access to the outdoors, but there are a few boarders and horses in training that prefer to hang out in their stalls, especially when there's activity in the arena. Benny is one who enjoys hanging outside with his buddies, safely biting at other horses through the fence, but when it's time to pee, he would walk into a stall, urinate in the same place every time, and walk out. When a horse is here temporarily, no big deal. That's to be expected. But when it's one of my own horses, maturity prevails and they go outside to do their business, but not Benny. I tried all sorts of methods to change Benny's urinating habit, from locking him out of his stall during the day when it wasn't raining, to positive reinforcement training, and even had a few animal communicators work with him, but to no avail. Peeing in his stall was deeply rooted in his psyche, and no matter what I tried, nothing could change this habit. Until my studies of the brain and body physiology of people and horses with the focus on emotions and communication have been particularly fascinating, with discoveries of brain cells found in organs such as the heart and gut, not just the brain. Science has been able to show that our brains transmit and receive frequencies like radio and TV frequencies, while words carry an energetic vibration when spoken. So I thought, if I have brain cells in my heart and gut making my body a powerful transmitter, and my horses are emotional creatures, why not use emotional-centered training to get Benny to stop peeing in his stall? I do not profess to be an animal communicator, but using a method of a thought bubble and then applying emotion was where I started, with no expectation, only hope. I stood in front of Benny's stall while he looked at me inquisitively. As I put my focus on the front of my body from heart to gut, spoke the words good feeling, paying close attention to how that made my body feel. It felt like softness, relaxation, joy, and love. Then I said bad feeling and noticed how my gut constricted. My heart ached a little and I felt sad and angry in my body. With a focused recognition of how my body feels when I express words, I looked at Benny, envisioned him standing outside his stall in the typical gelding stretch while he peed, and said good feeling out loud while holding on to the vision of him peeing outside in his paddock. I repeated the words good feeling, envisioning him peeing outside a couple more times. Then I envisioned Benny standing inside his stall in his usual pee spot and said bad feeling with the focus on how my body felt, imbuing the thought bubble with bad feeling. I repeated this a couple times as Benny looked over to the pee spot, turned to look at me, then walked out of his stall, stretched his body into a gelding pee stance, and released a stream. Wow! I was blown away. He actually got it. I praised him profusely with good feeling, Benny, and thought my work was done. The next 2 days were nothing short of a miracle. Benny did not pee in his stall. The emotional training had worked, so I thought. However, on the third day, he was back to peeing in his stall. So I realized I needed to repeat the good feeling, bad feeling thoughts and words every time I was out in the barn. Plus, when I saw Benny peeing outside, I would send him good feeling through my voice and gut feelings, and it worked. Benny was back to peeing outside. For the next 2 weeks, Benny had only a couple accidents peeing in his stall, but the rest of the time he amazed us by peeing outside. To keep Benny on track, my husband and I agreed that anytime we saw Benny peeing outside, we'd say, "Good feeling, Benny," sometimes clapping in joy, expressing our good feeling to him. About a month later, during a clinic at my barn, I was reciting this story to the crowd when Benny stepped out of his stall and proceeded to pee in front of the door as if to say, look at me, give me good feeling," which the entire crowd clapped their hands and said in unison, "Good feeling, Benny." It's been over 9 years since I used emotional training to teach Benny to pee outside. And to this day, when I walk into the barn, Benny steps outside to pee as if to say, "Give me good feeling," which I do profusely. Benny loves living in a good feeling. Who wouldn't, right? What started out to be an experiment has become one of the pillars of my Training the Whole Horse program. The enlightening source of power we have when we take the time to notice our feelings and use them for purposes of positive training accelerates training time while deepening communication between you and your horse. I've learned horses want to live in good feeling with us and happily do what we ask when there is good feeling imbued in the asking. How Emotional-Centered Training Taught a Horse to Stop Peeing in the Stall is a Do No Harm production written and narrated by Missy Wryn. For horse training equipment and tack, shop securely online at missywryn.com. If you have a question for me, email info@missywryn.com or call toll-free 888-406-7689.